When you're half American, half British, growing up in Kenya, travel gets in your blood. My brother Dan called it safari as a way of life. When he was 22, he was killed while on assignment as a war photographer in Somalia. I learned firsthand the effects of war, misunderstanding, and hate. Since his death, I have traveled the world in search of people who are finding positive solutions to today's challenges. People who believe there is hope for a better future. My name is Amy Eldon, and I am on a quest to find these extraordinary individuals who are creating a new world community, a global tribe. I'm on a global trek, traveling to what I call countries in transition, places that are trying to reinvent themselves, like South Africa. It wasn't long ago when I and so many others kept our distance, hoping things would change. Apartheid is gone, but have the people's attitudes changed? I wanted to see the new face of South Africa, and above all, meet the people who are shaping its future. Like most tourists, I had limited time, so I decided to concentrate on Cape Town and the surrounding province. The townships of South Africa are the heart and soul of the country. It's not where most tourists choose to come, but it's where most South Africans live, many in makeshift housing and even more without plumbing or electricity. I began my journey in Langa, one of the oldest townships in Cape Town. On a street where water pipes were being installed for the first time, I found a place called home and a woman with a dream. What does Lilapa mean?
Lilapa means a home. It's a Sotho name for a home.
And that's the name of your restaurant?
I couldn't name this place any other way but to name it for everybody who belongs here to be welcome.
Sheila Malone is facing a huge challenge. Tour buses might drive through the township, but it's another thing to get them to stop. Once they do, she's confident the simple charms of Lilapa will work their magic.
A home where they will be welcomed and get good food, sweet potato, carrot, cabbage, fish, spinach. That's what we Africans eat.
The food was wonderful, but during my time at Lilapa, I was the only paying customer. This didn't seem to discourage Sheila.
But if tourists can come day in and day out, then this place will be busy, girls will be working, children will be happy, day in and day out.
A visit to a township can pay off in unexpected ways. A few houses down from the restaurant, I found this group of young girls practicing some dance moves. It looked like a great way to work off lunch. After some township line dancing, I met up with David Cromer and Talit Peterson, two of South Africa's most talented playwrights and musicians. They were bringing some cast members back after a long hiatus to work on scenes from their hit musical, Cat and the Kings.
I can see it. I can see it now. There. Where? On a poster with big black letters.
Cat and the Kings is the story of Cat Diamond and the Kavala Kings, a doo-wop harmony group in the style of the classic U.S. groups, the Platters, the Coasters, and the Drifters.
Keep it tight. 3. If you're lonely, girl, why don't you please just phone me, girl?
The reason we chose doo-wop is the rock and roll is my first love. The American sailors came to Cape Town. They brought records with them of the American harmony groups, and when people heard those, they started to imitate them.
For us was like that American dream, that glossy Hollywood picture. That is what excited us. If, you know, only you can make the world seem right. That's, you see, so we did all that stuff because that was our dream. We wanted to be like that. Mister, can I shine your shoes for you?
I grew up on the white side of the apartheid fence and went to a government school which had very strict regulations, and a school that believed that apartheid was right and that what white people was doing was right.
My people, the Malay people, also came here against their will as slaves. They were rowing the ships for the Dutch. We got second and third to everything that the white people got. We have a heritage of our own. For example, this is what I'm saying. As I say, some main way verlaat. You see, that's how we are. That's how we are. That's a Malay song. That is our culture.
I've learned so much about his life, and he's learned about mine, and you know, and we've discovered our common humanity.
Cat in the Kings is set in an area of Cape Town called District 6. Back in the 50s and 60s, it represented a true melting pot for South Africa, a place where many races and colors lived together in relative harmony, a situation that spurred the apartheid government to take action.
On the 11th of February 1966, it was proclaimed an area for whites only, which resulted in people of color being forcibly removed from that area.
And then the whole place was razed by bulldozers, and it became a symbol of the cruelty of apartheid.
Talib and David planted a seed, so I decided to further explore the story of District 6. The once vibrant Cape Town neighborhood is now nothing but an overgrown field with roads leading nowhere. But I discovered the spirit of District 6 lives on with people like Noor Ibrahim, curator of the District 6 Museum. Noor, what is this?
Okay, this is the map of District 6. Now, let me show you what happened here if you come this way. Okay, what we do is we invite ex-residents to come in and actually write their names where they used to live. That's the whole idea of the map. And I used to live here, so that's my name there.
Noor Ibrahim and family. How many people lived in District 6?
Almost 70,000. The majority, of course, were the Christians and the Muslims, blacks, Indians, Hindus, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese. And we proved to the apartheid government it can work. People can live together. They didn't like that. And I still believe that was the reason they declared District 6 a white area in 1966.
Do you remember the last time you saw your house?
When I closed the front door behind me, they came in with the bulldozer immediately, you know. And I drove off, and I stopped right there in the middle of the street, and my wife said, "And now, what are you doing now?" I said, "I have to go back and actually watch them bulldoze my home." And I actually cried.
Noor, take me back to what this place used to be like. What did it smell like? What was happening?
Okay, if I close my eyes, I smell that curry. I hear the sound of children playing in the streets. I hear the sound of the music, jazz, ballads, you know, you name it, all kinds of music in District 6.
Look out now. What do you see? What do you feel?
Seeing this is sad because it's all wasteland. It is empty, you know. So I want the government to build houses, and hopefully it's going to happen maybe the end of the year. And I'm really looking forward in moving back to District 6.
It's hard to reconcile the sheer beauty of South Africa and stories like District 6. With Table Mountain looming in the background, I left Cape Town for one of the most infamous places in the country's history. My guide and teacher for the day was Ahmed Kathrada, one of the country's leading political figures and a former member of parliament. Mr. Kathrada experienced the oppression of apartheid firsthand. He spent 26 years in jail, 18 of them behind the walls of South Africa's notorious prison, Robben Island. As we walked up to his cell, I realized that Mr. Kathrada's time in jail was equal to my age, 26 years. For me, a lifetime. For him, the best years of his life, sacrificed for freedom.
We'll then get to my cell. Now from this cell one could look out. Stand on the chair and one could look out. On a day like this you could see Cape Town.
And when you were up there on the window peeking out, looking at Cape Town, did you think you'd get back there ever?
A prisoner never loses hope. Never ever. Although we were sentenced to life imprisonment, and for political prisoners life meant life.
Every year, thousands of South Africans and tourists from around the world make the trip out to Robben Island to stand outside what has become a shrine to the struggle against apartheid.
Here we are at Mr. Mandela's cell. There's 2 mats, 3 blankets. In addition to what you see here, there was a table, a chair, a bookcase. And 14 years after, we had beds.
14 years after, we had beds, a statistic Mr. Kathrada relates so matter-of-factly. The reality? Over 5,000 nights on a cold, hard floor.
This wall is where Mr. Mandela and others had their garden. The autobiography of Mr. Mandela was written in prison, Long Walk to Freedom. The originals were buried in the garden in plastic containers. Suddenly they started building this wall. And we tried to rescue whatever we could. We rescued some, the rest was caught. Our offense was that we had abused our study privileges by using paper and pen for purposes other than studies. And the punishment was we lost our study privileges for 4 years.
The government's plan was to crush their spirit. Mr. Kathrada and his comrades were given hard labor and forced to work every day in a limestone quarry. Rather than breaking them down, the prisoners turned the quarry into an outdoor university.
Depending on what we wanted to study, we could go to a certain group. Say, for instance, I was studying history, I'd work with Dr. Alexander and learn from him. Others would do the same with other subjects. So it was a great learning experience and an enriching experience for us.
You overcame so much here. Does that make it that much easier to overcome the hurdles that you now face in South Africa?
It does. What we do know is that the struggle to crush apartheid was in some ways less difficult than the struggle we are facing now. It's always easier to crush something than to build.
Perhaps only in South Africa will you find this situation. A former prison guard running the gift shop for the prison where he used to work and greeting his former prisoner as an old friend.
That's not my prisoner.
This is your ex-prisoner.
That's our warder.
When I arrived there, they tell us we're going to meet the biggest criminals in the history of South Africa. That's what I was very afraid of, to meet these criminals. When I enter there, I see old people. We become very close friends inside.
Was that rare that a warder and a prisoner would become friends?
That was not allowed, because even after their releases, we was not allowed to communicate to each other.
Mr. Mandela talks about the fact that racism degrades the perpetrator as well as the victim.
Exactly.
So liberation must have been an incredible sort of reaffirmation of everybody's humanity.
Yes. We've always said we have liberated them. We have liberated white South Africa as well as black South Africa.
Tell me about this artist.
Well, this is Kay, his son. He's a Johannesburg artist.
I was anxious to see how South Africa's artists have dealt with the turmoil and change of the last few years. My destination was the National Gallery, where I was lucky to have artist Sue Williamson lead me on a tour of some of the more powerful pieces on display.
The interesting thing about Kay is the way that he works. None of these colors are painted, even though they might look painted. They're posters, which he's actually either ripped or he'll cut it and like that.
So he's really using things from around his home as
Exactly,
his art.
and the things that he's seen.
This is one of the most famous pieces to come out of South Africa right now.
It is. It's called The Butcher Boys, and it's a piece by an artist called Jane Alexander, and she made it in the mid-1980s, which was really the time of the worst depression. And I think you could say that this piece was Jane's picture of society as it was then.
It's terrific.
Quite disturbing.
I hate to think that there's one of these guys in all of us.
Well, that's what it's about. It's about that dark side of society that is in all of us. The way that the flesh crawls away here, and you see this exposed bone, is really very eerie, very diseased. It's one of those sort of awful things that one can't help looking at.
Sue showed me one of her own works, a multimedia presentation dealing with the Truth and Reconciliation hearings held by the South African government. The hearings were supposed to help those who were oppressed by the apartheid regime confront their oppressors.
All those terrible stories that had happened had to be resolved in some way. We had to know who the killers were, who the torturers were.
May I ask the applicants to turn around and to face me? This is the first opportunity that we've had to look at each other in the eye.
Are able to treat me like an animal. All I remember saying to me that
I can't remember it correctly, sir, but I would concede I may have said it.
Putting both your thumbs into my nostrils and pulling it until the blood came out of my nose.
I know you had a nosebleed.
I went to a number of the cases. I went to this case, which was heard here in Cape Town. It was quite amazing to hear all this evidence coming out. So it was quite cathartic. At the same time, it was also horrific, because some of it was so much worse than you even imagined. There was so much of it that it went by so fast. I made this piece to remember some of it.
Do you remember?
No, sir. I do not recollect because I do not think it happened at all.
I can't say that I feel satisfied.
It must have been really healing for the people that were tortured to be able to be heard and to tell their stories.
I think it was healing in some ways, but as Ashley Forbes finishes up by saying, I can't say that I feel satisfied. He'd asked his questions and he wasn't really answered. It had its faults, but nonetheless it was a totally essential process, I think, for the country.
As much as it's important for your people who suffered to know who killed, I don't know why it is so important for me. It just is.
Like nearly every other traveler who comes to South Africa, I wanted to visit the wine country. In the rolling hills of Cape Province, I found a winery that offered something more than a tour and a tasting. A great story. It starts with Alan Nelson, owner of Nelson's Creek Winery.
When I bought the farm in 1987, the place was completely run down. There was absolutely nothing here. You won't believe what it looked like. And I then made the promise that if the staff helped me to develop the farm into a champion wine estate, that I would give them a piece of land if they produced a champion wine for me, so that they could also have their own enterprise and perhaps realize some of their own dreams. In 1996, we were awarded the prize for the champion Chardonnay in South Africa, and it was against that award that I then called Solly, in fact, aside, and I said, okay, Solly, now you've done it for me, now it's my time to deliver.
It's an incredible partnership.
Very much so.
In a country used to broken promises, Alan Nelson's workers found themselves in new territory, a place where they were able to do something for themselves. They called their winery New Beginnings.
In the history of South Africa, we have people other than white, coloureds or blacks, you may call them, that for the first time they have ownership of agricultural land, where they can plan, do and produce what they want to produce.
What stage are you now in the winemaking process?
Dat die onnodige krag nie in daai lote ingaan wat nie drywe dra nie.
He says that we are busy with the part where the vines is busy growing, where it is giving its leaves and its vines, and then we have to pick off those that doesn't bear or carry grapes, so that the ones that does carry grapes, the ones that has the bunches on, should grow faster and get all the juice out of the root.
Solly, the New Beginnings foreman, took Arthur under his wing and taught him how to work a vineyard. Ask Solly how you were as a student.
Hulle wil weet ek moet vir jou vra.
Wat ek kennis dra, wat kan geleerd is, wat kan lees en skryf, was ek eintlik trots op jou gewees. Die tyd wat ek sien, ja, jy kan dit goed doen.
He says, when he saw me as a little boy, as I grow up before him, he said to himself that one day he wanted to train me because I was educated, and when I started working with him, he knew that he could make me a very good student, and he says that he's proud of what I've become.
How do you taste wine?
First of all, normally when you have your wine in the glass, you would have a look at it. And
What am I looking for?
You're not looking for a lucky number or a lotto number. What you're basically looking,
I am.
Yeah, what you're basically looking is whether the wine is a healthy wine. Okay. And that sparkle you see, that will indicate that it's a healthy wine. Then after that, you would take a little sip and spread it over your tongue. Don't gargle your mouth, just spread it lightly over your tongue, so that in that case, you get a feel of the wine, whether it's sweet, whether it's sour, or whether it's bitter.
Can I try the red?
Yes, you may.
This place is really a symbol for the entire national rebirth that's occurring here in South Africa.
It is. Prophetically, the name New Beginnings, New Beginnings you can connect to a lot of things. It's a new beginning for themselves. It's a new beginning for the wine industry. It's a new beginning for the agriculture. It is also a new beginning for South Africa.
In Africa, safari is a way of life. My trip was coming to a close, and I wanted to end with some time in the bush. I found the perfect place, the mountain lodge at the Pinda Private Game Reserve. Set in the northeastern province of KwaZulu-Natal, Pinda is a shining example of what the rebirth of South Africa is all about. 10 years ago, the thousands of acres of Pinda were overworked farmland. In less than a decade, the Conservation Corporation of South Africa transformed it back into a natural paradise. All the wildlife on the reserve was brought in as part of a massive relocation program. Oh, wow. How old are these cheetahs?
8 years old.
So you've known these cheetahs all their lives?
As a young. There were 3 of them.
My guide, Benson Ngubani, is the first black game ranger on the Pinda Reserve. This is not a bad office.
Yes, it is a place where you can enjoy yourself. And then you don't just do it because it's a job. No, it's not a job.
How old is the baby?
Yeah, that's 8 months old baby, that one.
Is that a black rhino or a white rhino?
It's a white rhinos from the square lip marathon.
What's that?
There's only a time when the rhino can make that kind of a noise when it's young. And they only just try to push the mother to stop or the mother to give them the milk. But if you don't do that kind of noise, mother is not going to stop at all.
Benson is a respected member of his Zulu community and spends much of his time giving back to them.
To be the one of the,
he took us out to his village where he teaches students the importance of maintaining their most precious resource, the land.
We've been chopping all the trees down, killing all the animals, destroying the ground itself. Now it's well overgrazed and is called a desert. And now we try and educate people all the surroundings.
Benson also finds time to sponsor the school choir. My last night in South Africa ended magically with a performance by his group. Before I came to South Africa, I'd heard about the spread of AIDS and the violence sweeping the nation. I know there are still challenges facing this complex, wonderful country, but I can't help thinking back to what Ahmed Kathrada told me. It's always easier to crush something than to build. And as his good friend and one-time prison mate, Nelson Mandela, reminded his countrymen, there is no easy walk to freedom.
The Global Trek adventure continues at PBS Online. Visit us at pbs.org.